Let's take a look now at percentages and how to calculate a percentage of an amount. Now this is really important for the functional skills maths test, but it's also a really useful life skill as well. Now the key thing to remember is that percent means out of 100. So 10% means 10 out of 100 or 10 hundredths. And this is a fraction which can be simplified by chopping off a zero top and bottom to 1/10. So 10% is 1/10. So this question is, what is 1/10 of 230? When you're calculating 1/10 of something, you're simply dividing it by 10. When a number has a zero on the end and you're dividing it by 10, you can just chop a zero off. So 10% of 230 is simply 23. 10% of 150, again 10% is a tenth, divide it by 10, chop off the zero, 15. Now if you can work out 10%, it's really easy to work out 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80 and 90% from our 10% amount. So what's 20% of 350? Well, 10% is 35. So 20%, well 20% is double 10%, so it's going to be double 35. So 20% of 350 is 70. What is 30% of 150? Well, 10% is 15, so 30% is going to be 15 multiplied by 3, which is 45. For 50%, probably easier if you just remember that 50% is 1/2. A half of 360 is simply 180. I think it would be foolish to do, well, 10% is 36, 50% is 5 times 36, just unnecessarily complicated. Hopefully learn some of the basic percentage amounts. 50% is a half, 25% is a quarter, 75% is 3/4. Now if we can work out 10%, it's quite easy to work out 5% and therefore any multiple of 5%. So in a question, what is 5% of 240? Well, we know that 10% of 240 is 24, so therefore 5%, or 5% is half of 10%, half of 24 is 12, so the answer is 12. For 15%, well, what you do is you'd work out 10% and separately work out 5% and add 10% and 5% together, because 10 plus 5% is the 15%. So 10% of 160 is 16, 5% is half of the 10% amount, so half of 16 is 8, 16 plus 8, 24. 25%, again 25% is 1/4. What is a quarter of 48? Well, that's 48 divided by 4, which is 12. Again, I think it would be a bit daft here to do, well, 10% is 4.8, 20% is therefore 4.8 multiplied by 2, bit tricky, and 5% is 4.8 divided by 2, and then work out these two answers here and then add them together. Much too complicated. 25% is a quarter, just divide it by 4, simple. But for other percentage amounts ending in a 5, 35%, well that is 3 lots of 10% and 1 lot of 5%. 65%, that's 1 lot of 50%, 1 lot of 10% and 1 lot of 5%, or if you prefer, 6 lots of 10% and 1 lot of 5%, whatever you want to do, absolutely fine. So 1%, remember percent means out of 100, so 1% means 1 out of 100, so 1/100th. What is 1/100th of 400? Well, 400 divided by 100, chop off 2 zeros, 4. 1% of 320 is 320 divided by 100. Remember that 320 can be written as 320.0, and when you're dividing by 100, you're moving this decimal point 2 positions, so the answer is 3.2. 1% of 240, 2.4. In the same way that if you can work out 10%, it's easy to work out 20%. If you can work out 1%, you can work out 2%. So 1% of 440 is 4.4, so therefore 2% is going to be double that, 8.8. 1% of 160 is 1.6, so 3% is 1.6 times 3. 16 times 3 is 48, so 1.6 times 3 is 48 with one decimal place, so 4.8. If you don't have access to a calculator and you get a slightly nasty question like this, 36%, then what you'd need to do is work out 10% and then multiply that by 3, and that will give you the 30%. Work out 5%, which will be half of a 10% amount, and then work out 1%. 30 plus 5 plus 1 is 36. So 10% is 18. So here for 30%, we're doing 18 times 3, which is 54. 5% is half of 10%, so that's going to be 9, and 1% is 1.8. And then we just need to add these three figures up. Well, 54 plus 9, well, 54 plus 10 is 64, so go back one, that's 63. So 63 plus 1.8, 64.8 is the answer. Bit nasty. So ideally, if you've got a horrible percentage amount, you would be able to do it on a calculator. Now, I'm always amazed when I'm tutoring people, if I ask them to calculate 37%, they'll go for the, 10% is going to be 26.8, so multiply that by 3, work out half of 26.8. I mean, absolutely crazy. Use a calculator, it's so easy. Now, the problem is a lot of people don't know how to type it in on a calculator, and very quickly you'll learn how to do it, but I'm guaranteed that by tomorrow you'll have forgotten. So this is really, really important. Keep revisiting this and make sure you're competent at using a calculator, because it speeds things up no end. Now, the calculation is simply, for 37%, we're going to type in 0.37 into our calculator, multiplied by the total of 268. This number here, we call this our percentage multiplier. And it's called a multiplier because we multiply the total by it. And the percentage multiplier is simply the decimal equivalent of 37%. In other words, it's 37 divided by 100. All of this explanation seems much too complicated, really. Simply grab the percentage number, and if it's got 2 digits, just stick a 0 and a decimal point in front of it. Done. Easy. Very quick and easy for me to explain, but also very quick and easy for you to forget as well. So, like I say, make sure you're on top of this. 61% of 454 is 0.61 times 454. Notice I've not even bothered working out the answers. I couldn't care less about the answers. It's how to type them into the calculator that is the key thing. I'm sure you can type this in adequately into a calculator now that I've told you what the calculation is. 40% is 0.40 multiplied by 257, although the 0 here doesn't need to be there, so 0.4 times 257 is probably a slightly more efficient calculation. Notice the 0.4, that is the percentage multiplier for 40%, not for 4%. 7%, the multiplier is 0.07 times 452. Remember, the percentage multiplier is this figure here divided by 100. It's not 0.7. As we've seen above, 0.4 is the same as 0.40, which is the multiplier for 40%. So 0.7, well, that's the same as 0.70. That's the multiplier for 7%, whereas 0.07 is your multiplier for 7%. So be really careful with single digit percentage amounts and make sure you stick in that 0 there. Moving on to a number as a percentage of another. So 21 out of 50, what is that as a percentage? Now remember that a percentage per cent means out of 100. So all we're doing is we're just turning this into an equivalent fraction that is out of 100. Now 50 times 2 is 100. So for the equivalent fraction, we need to multiply the top by 2. So that is 42%. Out of 25, to go 25 to 100, you're multiplying by 4. So for an equivalent fraction, multiply the top by 4, 48%. If it's out of 20, or 20 times 5 is 100, so multiply the top by 5 to get the equivalent fraction, that's 55%. If it's tenths, really easy. Just stick a 0 top and bottom, 30%. Could not be easier. So tenths are very easy to convert into percentages. 4 out of 5, 5 multiplied by 20, takes a lot of people a while to work that one out. So multiply the top by 20 for the equivalent fraction, so 80%. But an easier way with fifths is convert them into tenths. 4 out of 5 is the same as 8 out of 10, which is the same as 80 out of 100, so 80%. Or 4 out of 5 is the same as 40 out of 50, which is the same as 80 out of 100, still 80%. Here are some values that you should simply memorize. 1/2, 50%, you probably know that already. 1/4 is 25%. Also worth knowing that 3/4 is 75%. We don't need 2/4 because 2/4 is the same as 1/2. 1/5, a lot easier if you just remember that 1/5 is 20%. Maybe you saw before that converting fifths into a percentage is a little bit tricky, but if you know that 1/5 is 20, then you'll remember that 2/5 is 40, 3/5 is 60, 4/5 is 80. And tenths are dead easy, just stick a 0 top and bottom. A tenth is 10%. So if the number on the bottom is 50, you're just doubling the top number. If it's 25, you're multiplying the top number by 4. If it's 20, you're multiplying the top number by 5. Now, here's another fraction which we want to convert into a percentage. So what is the equivalent fraction out of 100 for 16/40ths? Now, 40 does not go into 100. Now, if this is a question where you don't have access to a calculator, then it's a fraction that can be simplified. Now, 16 out of 40, we can simplify that, divide top and bottom by 2, 8 out of 20. And 20ths we can convert into 100ths easily enough. Although, let's see if can we simplify it any further. 8 20ths is the same as 4 out of 10. And 4 out of 10, that is really easy to convert into a percentage. It's 40%. I do know some people that want to simplify 4/10 again to 2/5, but why make that extra step to create a fraction that is a bit harder to convert into a percentage when 4/10 is so easy to convert into a percentage? But you can drop it down to 8 20ths and just times top and bottom by 5. But if you can get it into tenths, then the job is so easy. Now, if you've got a fraction like this, you can simplify this fraction to 6 out of 36, which simplifies to 1 out of 6. I didn't realize I'd chosen a fraction that can be simplified, but even when it's out of 36 or it's out of 6, it's very, very difficult. Well, 36 does not go into 100 and neither does 1/6. So we're going to have to use a calculator here. Now, to turn a nasty fraction into a percentage, remember this line in a fraction means divide. So we're going to do 12 divided by 72. I don't see the point in simplifying it if you're going to use a calculator, because the calculator can handle big numbers, no problem at all. And 12 divided by 72 gives you 0.166, well, 116 recurring. Now, that is not the percentage, this is the decimal. So we need to multiply this number by 100 to turn it into a percentage. So that is 16.6 recurring. Let's just round that to 17%, shall we? So when you've got a fraction and you want to turn it into a percentage on a calculator, it's top divided by bottom multiplied by 100. In fact, we could have done that for the 16 out of 40. I mean, if you've got access to a calculator, it's absolutely fine. You don't have to do it mentally. 16 divided by 40 times 100 is 40%. So 11 out of 35, well, that's 11 divided by 35 multiplied by 100. 11 divided by 35 gives you the decimal answer. Don't even bother looking at that. Just multiply that by 100 and you get 31.42. Let's just call that 31%. Obviously, in an exam, they'll tell you how they want the decimal given to the nearest whole number, to a certain number of decimal places, etc. So here are some example questions. So I would say these first two, no calculator, but for the third one, definitely a calculator question. Now the key thing is to turn it into a fraction. So a company has 20 employees, 3 are part-time, so that means 3 out of the 20 are part-time, and we're converting this into a percentage. Remember, percent means out of 100. So 20 to a 100 is times 5. So let's multiply the top by 5. 3 5s are 15, so that's 15%. 39 out of 50 opted into the pension scheme. 50 doubled is 100, so let's double 39. 78, so 78% opted into the pension scheme. On this final question, 63 out of 74 were with MasterCard. Very well, I don't know how you're going to convert a 74 into a 100, very, very tricky. So let's just do top divided by bottom times 100, 63 divided by 74 times by 100, easy, 85% to the nearest whole number.